All right. Well, it's good to be with my friends this morning. I think this is the perfect way to start a Saturday morning is time with you. And so for all of our viewers that are joining us, you're going to see my assistant, Carrie Beeson. She's here. If you want to give them a little wave. And then there's also Sister Beth Dillon, who's here with us today from Virginia, Sister Vicki Simoneaux from Texas. And of course, I'm here in my church office in New Jersey. And I want to start by asking my two friends that are joining us for this chat about one word, just to give us a brief introduction. So, I mean, I can't imagine they don't know you, but just in case there's somebody out there who hasn't met you, introduce yourself. Beth, you want to start?
Sure. I'm Beth Dillon, and my husband and I pastor Cornerstone United Pentecostal Church in Winchester, Virginia. This is our 25th year here. We have one daughter, Kayla, and her husband who live nearby, and they have my one beautiful granddaughter, Sophia, and she is the joy of my life.
Absolutely. Welcome to the Grandmother Club.
Thank you.
Vicki.
Hi, I'm Vicki Simoneaux. We pastor in Houston, Texas. My husband, Tremaine, and I do. Before pastoring, we were in Africa for 20-something years as missionaries. I have 3 married children. I have 6 amazing grandchildren. We're in Texas, and, you know, all things are great in Texas, including my grandkids.
All things. Well, I'm delighted. I've been friends with both of you for so long. And even though we're not like best friends that talk every day, I think what I love about my relationship with each of you is one of those that when I see you, we kind of just pick up where we left off, and it's all good. We're never concerned if we go have a little gaps. It's all good. But I want to start today by talking about something that we all love, and that is focusing on the new year. So if you're like me, you're eyeball deep and getting prepared for the holidays. How's that going? I know you're taking time. You know, you doing okay? You're surviving?
Surviving. It's always a rush, and it's always challenging trying to figure out the plans because our family is spread out across the United States. So trying to figure out when and how we're going to get together is our biggest challenge, but we're working on that.
Excellent. I love it.
For us, we have our kids do it off year, on year. This is our own year with our kids for Christmas, which means Thanksgiving will be a little slower for us, but it's great.
Oh, nice. Oh, I get a new grandbaby for Thanksgiving. So, you know, that's very exciting. Yeah. So I've got my priorities this year. I'm gonna sit and just hold my grandbaby and forget the rest of it. It's all good. Well, I want to get started. Years ago, I came across this idea of having one word to guide us for a year. And I really wasn't sure how it started, but I started by kind of rooting, like it would be a scripture verse that would come to mind, and I would be kind of wallowing in that in the holiday season. And then I would think maybe that might be a good word to guide me in the new year. So that's how I started and kind of got an interest in this one word. And then as we go, I'll share the influence that it's had on me in my good years and my ridiculous years. And hopefully you can do that as well. But tell me, how did each of you get started with this idea of using one word as the guide for your life for a whole year in a new year?
I'll say for me, it started in 2012, actually the end of 2011. I was kind of tired of doing New Year's resolutions and them lasting a little bit and then not, and life taking a turn and changing my resolutions by January or February. Mm-hmm. And so I was just trying to, in my prayer and focusing, usually between October and December, I try to start focusing on, God, what is my direction or vision for next year? And that kind of what happened with me. And I just stumbled on a book, my one word, hashtag my one word, or an article, not a book. And as I began to read about that, I thought that's what it is. And there was just this little nagging thing in my head. We had just returned from the mission field not long before, and it just kind of hit with me. And I just kind of was at a point where I felt like I had no connections anymore in my life. being in missions, you had that connection, and I felt like I didn't have that anymore. And I just was wanting to really connect with some things, connect with the States. We had only been back, we had come home that year, 2011, and I felt like I needed to reconnect with the US. I actually, strange enough, needed to reconnect with my family here in the US. And so my one word was connect. And I just really tried to make that happen. And that's where it just started resonating with me. And I realized that my one word helped me not just with resolutions, but that became part of my resolution of every part of my life, connecting in many areas of my life. And that's where mine started from in 2012.
Oh, I love it. Kind of became that word as the underpinning of your year.
And if you really usually think about your New Year's resolutions, usually there's a theme that runs through them. Mm-hmm. And that's where I thought, let me focus on that theme and let it affect different areas of my life.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
My story is similar in that I love the new year, and I always look forward to the fresh beginning, and I make long lists and lots of resolutions and get real serious about it. And then it doesn't last as long as I would like for it to. And that gets frustrating year after year. And so one year in the fall of 2000, I think it was, I had gone to a banquet and they had put random words at the place settings just from the dictionary. And they ask you to use them as a crowd breaker to introduce yourself to your neighbor and tell them how that word might impact your life. And it was very random, but it just sort of gave me the idea to pick a word, just one word to focus on. I didn't really know that it was a thing until later. I'm not really sure when the whole movement started, and there are different ones, even secular organizations that promote the one word, choosing the one word. But for that first year, I chose the word, and I just kind of did it on my own. But then the next year, I invited my ladies prayer group to pick a word, and we did it. And then the next year, we invited like all the ladies in the church to do it. And now, after 22 years of doing it, it's like a church thing. Like everybody picks a word, and it's a family thing. All my family, it's spread out to all my family where we pick words. And it really does give us a way to connect to one another when you know like what words your family, they're focusing on. When those words pop up, it gives you a way to connect to them. And so in 2012, I found a book called One Perfect Word by this lady who's actually a fictional writer. She's very popular for her fictional books, Debbie McComber. But this is a factual book about her story of choosing a word and how that she started doing it. And then every year picked a word to focus on. And so when I found this book, it was like, she's telling my story. This is how I could have written this book. Because
you should have.
Yeah, I should have. Yeah.
That's fun. Well, give me some examples of your words. So you picked a word. How did you come across it? You've both been doing it for a while, and maybe just share an example of how, like you did, Vicki, that one word, connect, and how important it was to you. But what are some examples of words, and how did they guide you?
For me, some years it's been even just reading an article or reading a devotion, and just one word just kind of stuck out to me. Mm-hmm. Some years it's been 1 or 2 weeks into the new year, and I'm still struggling with that. And I don't like, I've got to have my one word, and I plastered that all over my face and all over my house. It's not that, but I really try to make it not to be super spiritual, but I really try to make it a spiritual thing. How mm-hmm. can it affect my personal life and spiritual life and my family, my health? I've done Connect. That year was my first year, and I really just probably was one of my looser years with using it because it was still new to me. 2017, I used the word cherish. And it just was 2017 was a year that I needed to I felt like the Lord was speaking to me about maybe my other word could have been content that year. I just needed to cherish the things that I had, cherish the people that were around me. I I'm going to say that going into 2017, when I chose the word, I didn't realize how important that word was going to be to me, how I really needed to cherish some things about me. I'll tell you a funny one was 2020. We all know the beautiful year of 2020. You know what my word was? Minimize.
Oh, I love
Go
it.
figure. And the Lord was already dealing with me about minimizing my schedule, minimizing, and did we all minimize that year. And it was a year that the Lord just knew I needed to take some time on that. Gentle was one of mine, just having a gentle spirit. Sometimes as leaders, we run and go and push and do. And sometimes we find ourselves in a situation where we're pushing a lot. And I felt like I needed to step back and have a gentle spirit. I felt like the Lord was dealing with me about that. Space. 2022, my year was space this year. This is funny as well. I just want to just a snippet here of how God uses those words for me. Space, I chose in October of last year, not outer space, but I just need to add space to my life. I need to add some space. Now, funny story, in December, my husband came to me and said, we're selling our house. We had a decent size, larger Texas. If you're from Texas, our homes are larger here. Everything's bigger in Texas. We had a bigger home, 5 bedrooms, 4.5 baths, 3.5 baths, whatever. But just everything is bigger here. And we don't need that. We're empty nesters. And I thought, okay, now my space, and now we're going down in space. But what I have found is I've cleared space. I don't have a big home anymore. Actually, funny story. I'm living in evangelist quarters right now with no kitchen, 7,000 square feet.
Oh, you did go
700 square feet. I said that wrong. 700 square feet.
Okay.
I have no space. I have zero space. But you know what? I have space because I've cleared clutter from my life. And I just find it usually I look back and I find it kind of humorous, like, God, you really knew what you were doing. But I do find that it does add in every area of my life. And sorry if you heard my husband in the background, he heard me misquote that square footage. So let me reiterate, 700.
Well, I was just thinking maybe I needed to come down and evangelize and stay in your evangelist court.
Everything in my house wasn't even near that. Sorry about that.
That's awesome. Beth, what are some examples?
I think for me, a lot of times, my words kind of depend on what's going on in my life. I kind of lean into that. But usually in the fall of the year, I start, just praying and asking the Lord what, should my word be for the next year. And I kind of just start looking for it to pop up. Like it becomes a theme that will show up in my Bible reading or my devotionals, or I'll hear a song on the radio or a sermon preached or something that will just start resonating in my spirit. Some years it's been easier than others. Like I just knew this is going to be my word. Other years I've been like looking for it and waiting, like, when is it going to come? One year my word was humility. And I thought that I was going to humble myself before the Lord and be exalted in due time. But I actually had a couple of really personally humiliating experiences that year that helped me to process that word in real time, where I was trying to develop that character trait in my life. And it wasn't just a word, it was a very memorable experience that I haven't forgotten. And a lot of times you pick a word and you think it's going to go one way, and then the Lord kind of flips it on its head and uses it in a completely different way. One year my word was breakthrough. And I had something that I really felt like I needed a breakthrough in. And, if you pick the word like joy or peace, you're going to see that everywhere, especially at holiday time. You're going to find it popping up everywhere because it's a common word. But breakthrough is not a word that just shows up real easily. It's not even in the Bible, literally breakthrough. I mean, there's references to that, but not the word itself. And so, I was thinking, I really need a confirmation because this is a serious thing, and I want this breakthrough in my life. And I committed myself to a time of prayer and fasting for this particular thing. And so I had gone to the doctor for something, and I was in the room with the doctor, and she told me, she said, "You need to read this book, Breakthrough." And it's a holistic book, which is uncommon for a medical doctor to recommend a holistic book, but she wrote it down on a tongue depressor. The word breakthrough and the author's name. And so I've kept that all these years. I usually make journals every year with my word so that I can write down the times that it's confirmed. I like to keep a pattern. And that's one thing that to me has been beneficial, is how you could connect the dots from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And it resonates all through the year, and you don't feel like you've lost momentum or you've fallen off the wagon and haven't kept your resolutions, but you can keep that consistent thread of focus throughout the whole year by paying attention to the times that God is reminding you, bringing it back to memory with different ways he confirms the word and the work that he's doing in your life.
Oh, I love it. It is true that some of the words that come to us, because I'm like right now, I'm still trying to live out my 2022 word, and I'm praying about what's coming in the new year, but some of them make beautiful sense in the moment. Some of them are so just like, oh, this is going to be a great year. So my 2022 word my 2020 word was inspire. And how I thought that was going to play out, it turned out a little bit different, but it was rooted in or related to. So usually I'll write my word and then I'll write the scripture verses or the kind of the idea behind it next to it. So I stay focused. And so I wrote next to inspire, I wrote this specifically related to one anothering in the body of Christ. And so the year started, I'm like, this is such an amazing year. Oh, I'm loving it. Of course, as I was flying, I noticed airplanes getting emptier and emptier, but I'm not the brightest little light bulb. I'm not paying attention to the world. In fact, Vicki, I was with you in February, 2 weeks before she had her ladies come, 2 weeks before the world shut down. And I'm still running around acting like everything's
900 ladies in a small space.
Yeah.
Like 2 weeks later, do we think back terrified?
Yeah, breathing on each other, worshiping, singing, everything going, praying for one. It was awesome. And so then I'm in Jersey, and so we're just really locked down. I mean, like prison lockdown, and we're stuck in our houses. And then that word inspire as one another fully came alive to me in the sense of, oh my word, I am now, trying to be so responsible to love and care for people I can't even be with. I can't even be in their presence, So this year, my word is kindness. And, it seems like it's been particularly harsh, the last couple of years since 2020, it's like everybody got angry and harsh, but so what I noticed was that not only was it just, in the world, so to speak, but I was noticing there were women that I love, but, like everybody's kind of getting grumpy, and we were maybe not being as tender and kind and gentle and gracious as we could. So last year, I really committed. I wanted to make sure I was living out kindness, to my own children, to my church family, to my students, to everyone, people on an airplane, in an angry world, I want to be kind. And so that's going to kind of lead into the next thing. And that is, how do you keep that word front and center? You kind of mentioned you journal it, you create these notebooks and journal it, keep it front and center. I was so determined that I was going to really grow in just I wanted kindness to be true to my nature, not just an activity that I was kind, check the box, but I wanted that to be true to me. And so I found a pillow that had kindness on it, and I put it where when I'm working, I look across and there it is, and then I have this little plastic word. I'm too embarrassed to show it to you because it's so cheap, but it's this little red word that says kind. and I just keep it around me all the time. But yeah, let's kind of move into that. How do you keep that word fresh? Yes.
I find my word was flow one year. I don't know if you can see it, but it says somebody bought the cup for me.
Yeah.
Go with the flow.
I like
And then I had found this little plaque that says flow. So for that year, I had those items, but I always try to put the word somewhere where I can see it, even if I have to just print it out and put it in a little picture frame. I have a friend who sewed this onto a card that I framed. And this year she made me a bookmark that I keep in my Bible with the word on it. So I see it all the time. But I like
our addresses. She can send us bookmarks too.
We'll give her our word.
Yeah, we'll be sending our word. Absolutely.
This is another idea that you can do online. It's like a site that you go to where you can enter in, like, this is my word from last year, abide. And these are all the words of all my ladies.
Oh,
And
nice.
so we entered in, and so we did it as a project for all the ladies where their word would be the big one, and then all of the rest of ours would go small. So I don't know what that is. Another girl in my church did it for us, but we've done this a couple of years because everybody really liked not only having their word, but all of the other ladies in the church, their words in there too.
I like that. Absolutely. I want one.
Yeah, I think I do similar to Beth. Sorry, just keeping it out there. Yeah. Go ahead, Beth. You were showing something.
This is just a simple way. One year I bought one of these little just flip card things, and I just stuck my word on the front of it. And then because I was like, I didn't have time that year to do a big journal, and so I just wrote my little references and it was easy to carry in my purse. And then, like at church, if there was something that was said or sung or whatever, I could fill in this little thing. This is a real simple one.
I think for people on the go all the time, that is an excellent, because you can take that with you and everywhere you go. It's easy to keep near. Whereas a bigger journal, it's hard to travel with. So I have all these loose notes, and then I get home from a trip, I'm like scrambling to find them and get them, stuck in the right place. So I'll have them 20 years later. I mean, nobody's going to want to read them. They'll have to throw them all away, but that'll be their problem. Vicki, any ways that you keep it front and center? Like what happens in October when you've been living out this word or attempting? Does it ever get stale and you have to like kind of go into a spiritual retreat and relaunch it? Or how do you not get stale in your word?
I think that is a real part. And I think that has happened, but I think in the later years, once I really learn to realize this word really did come from God. I really like to believe that the Lord helped me with this word. I really do like to just think that, and I do believe that. So I think more what happens for me is that word I begin to cherish that word so much that it becomes personal. And it's like, it's kind of silly to say this. I'm almost embarrassed, but it almost becomes hard for me to release that word to the next word, if that makes sense. Like I've done that. I have several journals. I have made bookmarks on my own. A lot of times my computer, the background on my computer, it'll have the word done on it. My daughter has even bought me, she's even ordered off of Etsy several little things with my different word for that year and given to me to put around in different places. I think one of my biggest things that I do, I have a prayer journal at home that's a notebook that I keep Christmas cards in. So if you send me a Christmas card, hint, if you send me a Christmas card, I'm going to take your Christmas card and put it in there. And I flip through that and I pray for those people that send me Christmas cards. If you don't send me a Christmas card, I might not pray for you this year. I'm teasing.
But I post your address.
Also put that word in there. That also helps me because life does get busy. But I have found neat things. One of the things, 2021, my word was gentle. And I actually I have a crossbody purse by I'm not going to quote the name here because I'm not trying to give credits to any or advertising, but they will do engraving, like a little, not engraving, embossing on a little key tag that hangs on the crossbody. And then they usually do initials. Instead of initials, I got that. My husband bought that for me last year at the beginning of the year. And I had gentle put on it.
Oh,
So
nice.
even now, when I carry that little blue crossbody, on the tag, it says gentle. And in the back, I put the year. So I do remember, and so that year, that helped me remember when I was out. It was kind of like your kindness word. When I was out and about, just be gentle with people. Remember to be gentle. So it's just,
I feel like the words, like they become like layers that you don't ever go of them, but it's like you just build this foundation of words that have become a part of you and you don't ever let them go. Last year, my word was abide, and my key verse was Psalm 91, he that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. And I loved that word so much, and I really didn't want to let it go. I actually wanted to keep it for this year, which I'd never done that. I'd never kept a word for 2 years. But I was struggling with it so much. I was like, Lord, just give me a word. I'm tired of wrestling about whether I should keep this one or because I would try to find a new one and I just couldn't find one that I felt like I was settled on. And so I had gone to bed one night and I prayed that prayer, Lord, just give me a word. And I woke up the next morning and he said, your word is rest. And I went and looked at Psalm 91 and in another translation, and it says, he that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall rest under the shadow of the Almighty. So abide was my word last year. Rest is my word this year, but they both just sort of seamlessly connected together. And I just thought it was so cool how the Lord did that for me, because I got a new word, which is fresh, but it's still the same, sort of the same concept. And so I don't ever let go of them. They just sort of become a part of me.
You just own it, right?
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to show you my Bible. It's really embarrassing. No one needs to buy me a new one, but so I know it's covered. It's duct taped together. I know.
Mine looks worse, and I can't.
Oh, good. But I write all my words in the front of my Bible. Because it is like you go back and you start looking through the years.
Can't really see on here, but I do have
to keep your list. Yeah,
I keep a list year by year as well.
And to go back and look at, and then, like you both said, you kind of start seeing this weaving together of personal growth. And,
right.
and I'm not sure which one of you mentioned it, maybe both of you in some context, but how this applies to all the domains, even though it's rooted spiritually, because it has to flow from the inside out. But God is so wise and gentle in his leading of us. He knows what we need physically and what we need mentally and emotionally and socially and, in our ministry and everything. So I think that is so exciting. And I'm really excited. Like, I don't have my word yet for the new year, but what we're going to do on the Reflections Facebook page is we're actually going to have a conversation once the magazines are available to everyone. We're going to have a conversation. So I'm inviting all the viewers to check out Reflections Facebook page, where you can start sharing your word, or you can share your journey to finding your word. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun. So before we end, because I know you're busy ladies, what tips do you have for getting started? Just any last few words for getting started? Someone who's never done this before or tried it and kind of gave up on it, and we're inviting them back to it.
Well, it doesn't have to be a spiritual word. I think they need to know that. You don't have to feel like it has to be spiritual. Like you said, it can apply to any area of our life. But I feel like you ask God, help me find a word, and then you just start listening and looking. Because if you start listening and looking, you'll start finding a word that will start popping up more often than others, or a theme. Because sometimes, there have been years that I've had a little phrase, like let it go was my phrase one year. It wasn't just one word, but it was a theme that kept popping up. And so once you start looking for it and listening to it, and you don't have to overthink it. Some people are like, I don't know, I can't figure it out. It's like, just choose something that resonates with your heart. Listen to God, listen to your heart, look at your own, like look back at your own like journals or prayers or things that you've been asking God for. And it's like, is there a theme? Is there something that you're wanting to work on? And like prayer could be your word. And if that's something you need to do more of, then you make it a practice instead of just a word. You implement it into your life. And so I think listening, looking, and then picking a verse, like I like to pick a key verse that goes with my word. And once I choose a word, then I look at all the dictionary definitions, I look at the commentary, I try to explore it from all angles to see what does this word really mean and what is it going to mean for me. So that would be my advice.
I like it. I like it.
I would agree with that. Not trying to oversimplify it, but don't overcomplicate it. Just really. And if you are feeling challenged in an area, look, I have actually felt there were several things that was going on in my life. And in fact, space, that's kind of how I did space. I was feeling challenged in some areas. I was feeling overwhelmed and I felt like the Lord was directing me. So I actually, you know, in Google, you have to be careful with Google, but I actually was, you know, like Google word for another word for, or this, you know, and I actually have even typed a Bible lesson on that kind of stuff. And it just, as I started doing that, I just kept seeing this making room, making space, declutter, that kind of theme just started coming out at me. And that's where I knew that's what I'm doing. I kind of already feel a direction God is taking me in like next year. I'm not real sure of my word, but I'll give a hint for that. I'd be happy to do that. I feel like there's been some stumbling blocks the last couple of years in personal life, things around me, and just, you know, we've hit grief hard in 2020. I lost my brother very tragically. 8 weeks later, I lost my dad. And it was just like, and so I have felt like I've been stuck. Does that make sense? I've just kind of not really stuck in grief, but stuck in grief. And I feel like there's been some situations around me that I've just been stuck in. And I kind of feel like the Lord direction. And my husband made a comment the other day. And when he said it, I was like, I think that's where the Lord is directing me. I really feel like my word for 2023, don't hold me to it in a few weeks. If you see me post that on Facebook and I've changed it, we won't. I really feel like it's go. I feel like, okay, let's go. We've been stuck here enough. Let's get out of this and let's go.
I like it.
So, but I think just letting the Lord and just looking at it, and like Beth said, it doesn't have to always be spiritual. It just, but that does affect my spiritual. If I am stuck in my natural life, I am going to be stuck in my prayer life. I'm going to be stuck in my devotion. I'm going to be stuck in my ministry. So I do feel like you know, holistic type thing, if you want to use that word, I do feel like the Lord, it has to just resonate within me on every area of my life. But I would just say, if you're contemplating doing this, give it a try. Just give it a try. Hold yourself accountable to that word and just pray, or talk with a mentor, talk with someone. This is what I'm feeling. Kind of, what do you see? You know, I take it very personal, but I think that's okay. I love what Beth's doing. I think I'm going to take that. I'm going to steal her idea. I want to take this before the ladies of our church, because they always are sitting, you know, what's your word? I'm waiting for your word. I have Facebook friends that I never see. I'm waiting for your word for the year. And I never release it publicly until about January 2. So.
How fun. Well, thank you for the preview of it. But I think we have some really great suggestions here. You kind of just start where you're at. You're going to have to rest a little bit. I know in the holiday season that probably we're all, you know, thinking I want to stress-free next year, but really you'll have to just take breathing room and pause. What's going on in you and around you that would guide you to become reflective? Lord, what do you have in store for me in the new year? What is my body telling me? Maybe some physical things that are saying slow down, or, you know, pay attention to your health. Maybe relationships need tending to. But that's the beauty of being praying women, is we can trust in the guidance of the Lord. He knows what's best for us. I just want to thank you both so much for sharing. Also, maybe I'm not quite sure when everyone gets, their Reflections magazine or be viewing this, but we'll put your suggestions in the article itself for the link that you mentioned, Vicki, the hashtag one word and the book. We're going to put some of that in there so people can be studying it and hopefully have enough time over the holidays to really get into this and enjoy it. And I look forward to everybody being on Facebook with us. That's going to be fun. So you, my friends, jump in and help me out with that, keeping that front and center as well. I love you both. Thank you so much for being with me and sharing.
Thank you for allowing me.
Take care.
All right. God bless.
God bless.